At 9:27 a.m. on the 24th of March 2015, a plane got in contact with the Marseille en route control center. It was an Airbus A320-211, operated by Germanwings headed from Barcelona to Dusseldorf. Everything seemed normal. The captain read back the air traffic controller's clearance at 9:30, allowing him to fly to an en route waypoint. Only a few minutes later, something was off. The control center in Marseille saw that the altitude for the aircraft was around 30,000 feet, almost 2,000 feet lower than the original cruise altitude, and declining. Marseille contacted the plane and asked what altitude the plane was cleared for, but they received no response at all over the next 30 seconds. Marseille tried to contact the flight crew 2 more times. No answer. At 9:34, the control center tried a different frequency, but again, no response. From 9:35 until 9:39, the Marseille control center tried to contact the flight crew multiple times over different frequencies. An air traffic controller from the French air defense system also tried, as well as another aircraft. But each time, no response from Germanwings flight 9525. At 9:40, radar contact was lost. The French air traffic controllers triggered a distress phase declaring that the aircraft and its occupants were in imminent danger and required immediate assistance. At 9:41 a.m. flight, Germanwings 9525 crashed into the side of a mountain in the Alps. What happened? The crash occurred on a remote mountain. Because there was no access by road, emergency crew had to be brought in via helicopter. The plane was completely destroyed. The debris field vast, but the pieces of the craft small. The cockpit voice and flight recorder were found in the same week, although they were both severely damaged. When flight investigators stitched together the data, a story of intentional action formed. The plane was hijacked, but not by terrorists. Let's go back. After the aircraft leveled off at its cruise altitude, the captain left the cockpit to go to the bathroom at 9:30. While he was in the bathroom, the plane was almost immediately set for a different altitude in the cockpit. At 9:34, the captain came back and requested access, but he got none. The door was locked. As he stood in front of that cockpit door, the captain began to understand. The co-pilot had hijacked the plane, and he had no way of getting in. After 2001, cockpits were changed in order to protect those flying the plane from potential hijackers. To enter the cockpit, a crew member has to call the cockpit on the intercom and press the pound key on a keypad, which buzzes the cockpit. At that moment, the pilot can switch the door control from norm to unlock, and the crew member can enter. The crew is also given emergency codes, which they can use if there are concerns for those in the cockpit. In that case, the crew member will use the emergency code on the keypad, triggering a 30-second timer, and the cockpit door will open for 5 seconds. However, there are situations where those in the cockpit want to override the access by the crew, like during a hijacking. In that situation, the pilots can switch the door control to lock, overriding all emergency access, and it's that mechanism that the co-pilot used to permanently lock access to the cockpit while the plane began to descend. The captain was locked out of the cockpit without any control. At 9:39, the cockpit voice recorder picked up violent blows on the cockpit door. The captain had repeatedly tried breaking in to gain access, but the cockpit door was reinforced. Made to withstand armed hijackers, the captain stood little chance. In the last minutes, the passengers' crew and captain all knew that the plane was going down. No one survived the crash. 144 passengers, 4 cabin crew, and the captain and co-pilot died. Amongst the passengers was an entire school class returning from a field trip to Spain. The captain, Patrick Sondenheimer, was a 34-year-old father of 2. In the aftermath, his wife set up a foundation in his name, intended to help children and young people handle grief and crisis. He had thousands of total flight hours, and his last moments were dedicated trying to save the plane and passengers. The co-pilot was 27 years old, and from a young age, he was passionate about flying. His bedroom had posters of Airbus, Boeing, and Lufthansa, and he'd become an expert glider pilot as a child. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video. It was insanely hard to make.